Hello, Catherine. It's so nice to have you on the show again. How are you doing today?
So good to be here. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Excellent.
And thank you so very much for being here again. You see, you are amazing. And the previous time when we had you on the show,
You're so nice.
yeah, it was pretty insightful. I learned series of beautiful things and I know so do the audience too. So for the sake of those ones who haven't been privileged to listen to our first episode together, I want you to briefly talk to us about your personal or your professional journey. Then afterwards, we can then pick up with some very interesting questions. Okay, so let's get started with that first, Catherine. All right?
Sure.
Okay.
My journey to becoming a parenting coach and having, I don't know, I guess my point of view started before I even knew it was starting. So I would say, in childhood, growing up in my family of origin, the worldview starts being created, and the things that motivate us from within are being formed, I think. So the motivation for me was coming from this place of feeling, and only later in life would I learn the word for it, but being cathected. And, I have TED Talks. I have 3 TED Talks, and one of my TED Talks really explores this aspect of my own experience of feeling so responsible for someone else's happiness, and that it was my job to make them happy. And I really spent most of my life, and the person I'm talking about was my mom. And later, when I was exposed to Alice Miller's work and her book called The Drama of the Gifted Child, it really changed my life, because Dr. Alice Miller's work is so profound around the dysfunctional patterns that families are unaware that they even have when they don't have the awareness of, like, my responsibility for creating this type of outcome or that type of outcome. Not to say that we're not in a dance together, but as parents, they're creating the ecosystem in the environment where so many patterns are being embedded into the children, which is why the conscious parenting revolution for me has come about, is that I know the harm that was done without conscious awareness of the harm that was being done, with lots of love. It's so convoluted and confusing, because it's not that you don't feel loved. There's love, but at the same time as being loved, there's also these patterns which you don't even realize are dysfunctional at the time that they're existing. It takes something to awaken that awareness of, oh my God, you didn't need to do this, but in the midst of having that pattern created, the people involved in creating it don't even know they're doing it. So, there's an expression, forgive them, Lord, they know not what they do, right? There's one which really applies, like, they're not aware of what they're doing when they're doing it, but yet they're still doing it and harm is done. But in terms of, like, how to deal with the feelings around it, it doesn't change that there was no conscious awareness. But at the same time, I grappled with the idea of, oh my God, not only was it harmful to me, but it was harmful to other members of the family. Everybody was bathed in um, the same, the same ecosystem. We were all in the same fishbowl, breathing and, living in the same situation. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but I think you get the picture.
That's right. I got the picture. And thank you so very much for,
Yeah.
for what you're doing. It's amazing. And previously you talked to us about some very important stuff that I really took into practice to understand and apply. And I'm really, really glad that I asked you those questions. You spoke to us about emotional triggers, in parenting and leadership. And you informed us on how to respond to these things and not react to it, which I found very, very insightful. So today, I want us to talk about, you've been making use of the word patterns. So I want you to talk more on that,
Mhm.
all right? So how can parents spot inherited patterns that no longer serve them? Got it?
Yeah, I've got it. And what I find in, in working with parents in my own trainings is that the first thing that helps is when you stop taking the pattern and feeling defensive about a pattern as if you have to make yourself okay because you've made a mistake or you feel accused or blamed. And, no fault, no blame, no guilt, no shame. No fault, no blame, no guilt, no shame. Those four pillars are so crucial to healing, reconciliation, and, you know, a renaissance in how you are prepared to step into your leadership. If you feel like you're being blamed or it's your fault or the guilt, the shame, it paralyzes us from being able to go forward because we're so afraid of, because we've taken it so personally that it's my fault. It's not your fault. These patterns are so embedded within us. We didn't ask for them. We didn't create them. They were there. They were passed down. But it is our responsibility to come to an awareness that these patterns are present within us and we can rise above them. I liken it to, a radio station. If you're tuned into this radio station, you get Mozart. And if you're tuned into this radio station, you get static. And if you're tuned into another one, it's about what we're tuned into and being consciously aware that we control the station we're going to be tuned into. And just because we had been born into this station, and you can look at it as a vibrational station or you can
Mm,
use the
mm,
radio analogy, but we recognize that when we increase our life force energy, that we can change and affect the station that we're tuned into. As we increase the prana, there's a word for it in Sanskrit, it's called prana. As we increase our prana, we change our frequency. And it allows us to have access to a perspective, information that we didn't have access to at a lower frequency. We talk about people getting stuck in a rut or having a negative viewpoint, and both of those are true. Those do happen. And there is agency in us to be able to change those things. But we're pushing up against a lot of what is the tide of humanity. There are dominant patterns of how we respond to one another that exist throughout society. It's not just my family. It's also my village or my town or my city, or it gets bigger and bigger. And we can see where this is actually like the frequency of an entire community or group of people. In some of the work that we might know about with regard to just chakras, the base chakra and the chakras that exist within us, they each have a different color, they have a different frequency, they have a lot of different mindset, if you will, about them. And if you're stuck in the tribe where everything's about my tribe and not getting dangerously out of alignment with the tribe, then we stay exactly there. And we might turn a blind eye to our knowledge or information or access to other levels of seeing things. If you rise above just that one chakra, you're now in a different aspect of your awareness and you have the ability to tune into something else, which puts you at risk maybe at the level of the tribe. It's hard to break out of just working within like the big group, because that's where it's safe to just agree with everybody's thoughts and perspectives. It takes a lot of courage to be able to
yeah.
break out of that and say, well, I see that, I can see that perspective, but I also see another one. And that's where I think the no fault, no blame, no guilt, no shame is really helpful, is that it allows us to have the humility to look back on our own behavior and not take it so personally that this came through us when we recognize we were doing harm from that place, and just be a little bit more like, wow, I have a lot of empathy for the part of me that was in that place, thinking that was the highest and best there was. And I was coming from a place of love, but it was also a place of ignorance. And as a result of now seeing it, I recognize that the patterns that were coming through me at the time were not the best version of me. It was just that version of me at that time in history. It's the only way I think we can go forward, is to be able to give ourselves a little grace and understanding for the fact that we were there when we were there, and that was what we saw as our highest vision. I
Hmm.
think people are, all of us, including me, we're always trying to do our best, and sometimes that falls short of what best in class really is.
So
Because we
true.
have these feelings, if we recognize them, we have these ceilings of awareness, consciousness, and sight that we're constantly pushing up against. And if in our heart of hearts we're always looking for the truth, and we're inviting that higher sense of knowledge into our being, then we are able to look back on that and go, wow, that was a version at that time, but it's not the only one. And there are
Hmm.
others that are really important for us to see.
Rest to say, so, so true. And
Does it
I
make
got that.
sense?
A lot of sense, I tell you, a lot. And you see, this is
Yeah.
just as insightful as the previous one. And that's why I really enjoy listening to you, because your words are really incredible. You've got this amazing insight. Thank you for not keeping all of these stuffs to yourself. Thank you. So we've
you're
got some
so
more
you're so
questions
good
to
at your
go.
job, man. You're the best.
Thank you. Okay, so let us talk about connection and less conflict. So, what is one small shift that builds more connection and less conflict?
So, in my practice, I talk about connection before correction. So, in the context of a parent and a child, and we see them doing something that behaviorally is, um, socially unacceptable, and or behaviorally is a cry for help, but it can be so, the behavior itself can be presenting in such a way that the child or the young adult or the other person is falling apart in socially unacceptable ways. So it's easy for us to become judgmental and want to go into judgment around the behavior as being, good, bad, right, wrong. So I think, bearing Rumi in mind, I'll meet you in that field over there. The ancient Persian poet who was so insightful. I'll meet you in that field over there beyond right doing and wrongdoing. So that's a shift in consciousness. That's a whole nother ball game. Like in this ball game over here, where we assess behaviors on the basis of was it right or was it wrong? Was it good or was it bad? In that land, it's always going to be one or the other. It's always going to be okay or not okay, good or bad, right or wrong. And that is the problem with this land over here, is that it doesn't have a wide enough lens to be able to see the behaviors as not just that, but also to be able to see them as the tragic expression of the unmet need. When we move over to the land that Rumi talked about so long ago, because I think he was a poet in the 600s or 700s, he said, I'll meet you in that place. Beyond that mindset, he doesn't use those words, but in that land over there, beyond right doing and wrongdoing. So, what is that land beyond right doing and wrongdoing? It's where we look at everything as neutral. Everything's a neutral event. It's not right, it's not wrong, it's not good, it's not bad. It's a neutral event. And every one of these is an expression of something internally happening within someone. The tragic expression of the unmet need tells me about how wounded the internal reality is for the person who's doing the expressing. So if I want to start with the expression, that's actually the secondary issue, not the primary issue. The primary is the one inside. The connection happens where that is. It's beyond the assessment of the good, the bad, the right, the wrong. It's going past those behaviors, looking into the soul of the person and seeing the cry for help that's behind all of it. And if I don't take it personally as having anything to do with me, Marshall Rosenberg said, he said, if you really want connection, you have to never listen to the words people say. Just don't even start there. Because if you start there, then you're back to the place of arguments, defensiveness, proving them wrong, all of the things that come from that level of connection. It's such a what I'm going to say, a common place for us to try to form connection is at that space where it's almost impossible to do it. Yeah. Yeah. The quiz helps parents see their archetype, and it helps us when we see our archetype that we can recognize, again, archetypes are, to a certain extent, you could say they're eternal. That, it's not just me, it's me falling into a particular pattern of an archetype. So, when I recognize that I have a preference, you could say my ecosystem or my energy has a preference to falling into this ecotype or this archetype, then I realize that there are all these other archetypes too. And each one has advantages and disadvantages. And the one that I resonate with, I don't even realize because I'm unaware. It's a way for us to become more consciously aware of our preferences and the things that we actually have a bias against or a bias toward. And our biases are something that a lot of us have no idea what our bias is. And so that's another level of revelation, is to recognize that we're not neutral, that we actually do have a bias that makes us have preference for this way of being versus that way of being. So chances are a lot of us bring into this world children who are going to hold up a mirror for that archetype or that way of being that is different than the one that we call right, the one that we call the one that's preferential. And then we spend a lot of our lives trying to correct the person who has a presentation different from ours. And we try to let them know that it would be better for them to switch over to ours.
Oh,
We have a few minutes, so it'll have to be a short answer. But what inspired me to do that was that, again, back to the family of origin and recognizing that family of origin that I got to grow up in, that sort of gave birth to my personality and perspective, there were things to retain, and there were a lot of things to heal, I guess would be the best word. A lot of things to heal. And the last thing I wanted to do was unconsciously just bring forward those patterns that I had been exposed to that caused harm into my own little family that I was creating with my kids. And when I just tune into children, I tune into the little one in me that so desperately needed an enlightened being who recognized that harm was being done, who could have acknowledged the child and seen life through their eyes. And so it created in me the mission of wanting to be that stand for kids, the stand for the children's perspective, the stand for children recognizing and acknowledging really children are people too. So I speak to that through my conscious parenting revolution, that kids need an advocate. And if I can touch the lives of the parents and cultivate within them a remembering of their little inner child and how there was a voice that little child also needed to be present for them when they were young, and that they can get to be that voice now, not only for their children, but for the little one inside that also had been waiting for someone to show up. They get to show up for that little kid inside too now. Absolutely. So I'll send you the link for the quiz so you can share it with your audience. And I give away my book, 7 Strategies to Keep Your Relationship with Your Kids from Hitting the Boiling Point, which is my Amazon bestseller. People can go to freeparentingbook.com and download that. And the Conscious Parenting Revolution has developed its own family Lifeline, which is a free resource for families to be able to join us. And I hope everyone does, and share your day-to-day, struggles. What do you need support with? And the community is there for you. So that is just going to consciousparentingrevolution.com and joining our Lifeline, family Lifeline support within that ecosystem. And all of that is available. Of course, I also run my own training. And that's a 90-day family reset, which we would always welcome people to join in as well, with me coaching them every week. I don't know what I would say, but I do know that this is what I offer in my trainings. Is I say frequently, see your children beautiful. And I would just add to that, and see yourself beautiful too. Like, don't be so hard on yourself. Be prepared to give yourself grace, to put that loving arm around your shoulder that says you don't have to be perfect either. Parents get to be, there and making mistakes also. If we can provide the grace for ourselves, then children learn it's okay to make mistakes too. And we want them to feel it's okay to make mistakes too. So the last thing I would like everybody listening to do is write down on a piece of paper, if you haven't made a mistake today, you're not growing. And put it up on your refrigerator, put it up on the dashboard of your car, put it up everywhere you can think of, so that you and your children both learn it's okay not to be perfect. Let's be okay with mistakes, right? You're so welcome. Thank you again. You're such a lovely host. You're so welcome. Yes, thank you.